The video released by ISIL and what it means in the fight against the terror group. We're joined now by Douglas Smith. He worked in both the Clinton and Obama administrations and is with the MWW public relations firm that's here in Washington. He's the D.C. office's executive vice president and general manager. Why don't we start with where Jim Spellman was talking? You've sat in on these meetings, given advice. You've been an advisor. What kind of advice can one give to, the President Obama if he says, what do we do? I mean, you're kind of handcuffed, aren't you, in many respects?
Well, we're handcuffed in that we won't negotiate with terrorists, and that's what they are. And I think when they put this video out today, if anything, I think perhaps they will have tipped it, despite how horrible this video was, perhaps it will tip it in our favor. I think the fact that they burned an Arab alive is not going to help their cause. A lot of the Arab countries that have been sitting on the sidelines, unwilling to get involved in this fight, I think now we're going to think twice about that. If they'll burn one of them, will they burn one of ours?
Well, and that's a good point. Sunni, this man is Sunni. We're already seeing some Jordanians out in the street. They were saying, let's see, what were they saying? They were saying, there is no God but God, and the martyr is beloved by God, making the key point that this guy is a martyr. What does that do in terms of tipping things? You think that this is really going to backfire on them?
I actually think it will. I think it's going to give the Jordanians a lot more backing from other countries in the region that were a little unwilling to get involved because of our strong stance on it. And that's going to be helpful. I mean, I cannot believe that they would go this far. They've always used propaganda in an incredibly efficient and effective way. When they first launched Inspire magazine, all the way through these videos, it's all about getting attention. But by going this far and showing this amount of brutality, I think it's going to give the kind of backing that the King of Jordan has needed all along to really go after these guys. Who's
the audience for this video? Again, the production value's over the top. Are they aiming it at a specific audience, would you say?
I think they're aiming it at recruits. I mean, the interesting thing on this one is that it was in Arabic. So many of the other ones have been in English. So the only thing that I can conclude is they're trying to show the fanatics, join us, look what we will do. And that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get more people to join them, which some might say means they're in trouble, that perhaps they don't have the following that many people think they do.
Okay, let me go there, because that was going to be one of my questions. Does this indicate that they're weakened, that they're struggling? Does it just indicate how savage they are? I mean, what are we supposed to read into this?
I would say all of the above, and I don't mean to be so flippant about it, but I think that's the reality. They've shown a tremendous ability to impact terror, but no ability to control land. They can't hold the territory they're taking. They can't provide the services to the people that they are conquering. They're sort of a protection racket. They'll come into a town and they'll say to people, pay us the money and we won't kill you. But they've been very ineffectual at sort of expanding their mission and literally holding territory, repairing potholes, if you will, doing all the kinds of things that a government would do. And so I think right now, I mean, they're reacting to the fact that the Jordanians were pretty smart. I mean, they kept saying proof of life, proof of life. And I think they called their bluff. And I think clearly this pilot had been dead for a while before they released this. So last week, when they so desperately were trying to bundle them with the Japanese aid worker or journalist, this Jordanian was dead by all accounts. And I think ISIL, finally, their hand was played and had to come out and try something very, very dramatic.
Is there anything we can read into this, the fact that the king himself is here in Washington, D.C., that it would be released on this day?
Possibly. I mean, they're good and they are incredibly clever at using social media. I think that may be a bridge too far. As you know, the king is very, very close with Washington, through all administrations. And I think given the situation there and how it has heated up, I think this was a normal course of events for him to come here for a high-level consult with the president. I think if anything, as tragic as it could be, it perhaps helps Jordan even more that it happened while the king was here. For our national security services to see it, for our president to watch that video and to see how savage it is only going to make us that much more committed to supporting our friends in the region.
And it's worth noting that those two had met back in December, not that long ago. One final question before you go. We're covering this, and we've covered a lot of this, but we're also covering what was going on in Europe, the raids there. It seemed like perhaps there was a two-pronged attack. They were over here, but also perhaps there were going to be attacks in the West. What do we see in terms of the landscape? What do you see?
I think there are multiple competing groups in the terrorist space right now. I mean, by all indications, the folks that attacked in France came out of Yemen. And I think what we're seeing is a power grab amongst these terrorist organizations. And when ISIL first stood up, I mean, that's what they were. I mean, there was a power grab against the more sort of, it's hard to imagine, middle-of-the-road al-Qaeda, but that's what they were. They were that much more extreme. And so what I think we're seeing now is many of these splinter groups fighting for a lot of these things. The planning that went into France was much more aggressive and long range than we've seen ISIS been able to pull off.
All right, Douglas, thanks so much for coming in and offering insight. Appreciate it.